Neighbor kept letting his dog shit in my yard, so I collected it and dumped it on his porch. So here's the deal. My name's Cadogan, a name as rare as a rainy day in the Sahara, and I live in this quaint little village in the UK where everyone knows everyone's business. Now let me introduce you to the main villain in this tale, my neighbor, Seamus. He's got this huge Labrador, Rusty, who apparently thinks my yard is the local dog loo. For weeks, I'd find these steaming piles of dog crap all over my lawn. At first, I thought it might be a fox or something, but then one morning, I saw Rusty squatting right in the middle of my prize-winning roses, and there was Seamus, standing by, whistling like it was no big deal. I confronted him, and all he said was, "Dogs will be dogs, mate. What can you do?" Bloody hell, I was fuming. So I did the polite British thing. I grumbled and cleaned it up. But it kept happening every damn day. I left notes, I tried talking to him again, but Seamus just shrugged it off, telling me to chill out, and even had the cheek to say, "Maybe you should get a dog too, Cadogan. Then they can be best mates." Yeah, right. One day, after stepping in another fresh pile while in my socks, yes, socks, I snapped. Something had to be done. I couldn't just keep picking up Rusty's shit like some kind of poo servant. I decided to collect it all, every last bit, for a week. I had a plan brewing, and it was going to be legendary. Now, I'm not proud of what I did, but sometimes you've got to fight fire with fire. Or in this case, shit with shit. I bought a cheap, giant plastic tub and started collecting every pile I found. I wore gloves, of course, but still, it was rank. The worst part? Seeing Seamus smirk every time he saw me cleaning up. That smug bastard. By the end of the week, I had a hefty collection. Seamus had left for the weekend, probably off to some pub with his mates, so it was the perfect time. Under the cover of night, I donned my dark hoodie, full stealth mode, and carried the tub over to Seamus's porch. I could hardly lift the damn thing, it was so full. And then, I tipped it. Right on his welcome mat. It was a massive, stinking mountain of revenge. I almost gagged, but the satisfaction was worth it. I woke up the next day with a mixture of dread and excitement. Would Seamus retaliate? Would he finally learn his lesson? I peeked out the window like some nosy old lady waiting for the show to start. When Seamus came back and saw the mess, his face went through a series of hilarious expressions: confusion, horror, and then rage. He started yelling, banging on my door, demanding I clean it up. I opened the door, arms crossed, and said, "Dogs will be dogs, right?" His face turned beet red. He shouted a lot of things, mostly about how I was fucking mental and how he'd get me back for this. But then, something beautiful happened. The neighbors started coming out. Mrs. Penelope from next door, old Mr. Percy, even that weirdo Gareth from the corner house. They all started complaining about Rusty's poop. Seamus looked like he wanted the ground to swallow him up. Seamus couldn't handle the neighborhood's disapproval. He tried to act all tough, but when Mrs. Penelope threatened to report him to the council, he finally backed down. The next morning, he was out there, scrubbing his porch, muttering to himself. And he must have put two and two together, because from that day on, he always walked Rusty somewhere else. But Seamus wasn't one to let things go. A few days later, I found a massive bag of dog food on my doorstep with a note that said, "For your future dog, mate, enjoy the shits." I laughed so hard I nearly choked. Instead of being mad, I felt like we'd had a weird sort of bonding moment. The guy was a prick, sure, but at least he had a sense of humor. Just when I thought things had settled down, Seamus invited me over for a drink. I was suspicious, thinking maybe he'd lace my beer with laxatives or something. But curiosity got the better of me. Turns out he wanted to apologize. He said he didn't realize how much Rusty's mess bothered everyone. We ended up having a few pints and actually talked like normal people. In a bizarre twist of fate, Seamus and I became sort of friends? I mean, we still had our differences, and Rusty wasn't allowed near my garden, but we'd chat over the fence now and then. And when Seamus finally moved out, he left a note in my mailbox. "You're a right bastard, but a good neighbor. Cheers for the laughs." So, yeah, I guess the moral of the story is, sometimes a pile of dog shit can lead to an unlikely friendship. Who knew? Comments and reactions. Fluffy Marshmallow. This story is legendary. I can't believe you actually did that. Seamus got what he deserved. Cadogan. Thanks. It felt good to stand up for myself. And sometimes you've got to get creative to make a point. Grumpy Grizzly. You're a psycho, mate, but in the best possible way. Cadogan. I prefer the term resourceful, but yeah, it was a bit mad. Cheerful Bubble. Finally, someone who stands up to crappy neighbors. Respect. Cadogan. Glad you think so. It's all about setting boundaries, even if it means getting your hands dirty. Literally. Miserable Troll. You're both assholes. Seamus for not picking up after his dog, and you for dumping shit on his porch. Grow up. Cadogan. Fair point. It wasn't the most mature way to handle things, but sometimes you've got to fight fire with fire. Sassy Squirrel. Seamus sounds like a twat, but kudos for turning it around into a friendship. Weird but kinda sweet. Cadogan. Yeah, life's strange like that. Sometimes enemies can become unlikely friends, over a beer and some poop talk. So there you have it. A tale of revenge, shit, and unlikely friendship. Never thought my life would take such a turn, but hey, it makes for a good story, right?